不是真正土地的新加坡人？你们是不是很可怜呢？ Dear Singaporeans, good evening. The statistics are so horrible. In the last 3 years, from 2022 to 2024, 351,000 jobs growth. Of this, 91.3% went to foreigners. The balance, 8.7%, goes to or went to residents, PRs and Singaporeans. But there's no breakdown. How many are PRs? How many are Singaporeans? If you take out the PRs in the balance, how many Singaporeans left? If you take out the new citizens from the Singaporeans, how many Singaporeans are left? You see, when a foreigner is granted PR status, he is counted as a resident job growth if he's in the workforce. In the last 3 years, 104,000 new PRs were granted. How many of these PRs were counted as job growth in the last 3 years for that balance 8.7%? The statistics are so horrible. The total workforce, excluding migrant domestic workers, 34% are foreigners, 9% are PRs, 7% are new citizens. So you add the three together, 34 plus 9 plus 7, you're looking at about 50% or half the total workforce are non-native Singaporeans. I mean, is this acceptable to Singaporeans? Let me try to explain a bit further how the figures are derived. We know the percentage of foreigners, but we don't know the percentage of PRs because the resident job statistics is not broken down into PRs and Singaporeans. However, we can compute and estimate from the number of unemployed and the unemployment rate. That's how we managed to get the 9% of PRs. We also don't know what percentage of the citizen workforce are new citizens, but we can try to compute and estimate because we have a clue that was given in Parliament, because it was said in Parliament, 13% of the citizen workforce are not born in Singapore. So from there we can make an estimate. And also, what about those who were born in Singapore, not as citizens, but subsequently became citizens in the workforce? So we tell all this together, we get the estimate of about 7% of new citizens in the workforce. So again, total up, about half the workforce, excluding migrant workers, are non-native Singaporeans. Those statistics are so horrible. Look at income. Associate professionals and technicians. Real increase in income in the last 20 years, only 0.16% per annum. So in absolute dollar terms, you're looking like the poor guy had like $5 a year real increase in the last 20 years. And the associate professionals and technicians are what we call the sandwich class because they are classified as PMETs, professionals, managers, engineers and technicians, but they are below the managers and the professionals. HDB resale prices in the last 20 years went up by 157% against only a 57% increase in income for the associate professionals and technicians. The statistics are so horrible. We have about $609 billion in total CPF balances. We estimate the difference between the returns derived from our CPF and the interest paid to CPF members is about 13.4 billion a year. How do we get this 13.4 billion? The difference between the interest paid to members and the returns derived, we estimate, is 2.2%. You see, nobody knows what is the annualized return of GIC from inception. However, a few years ago, at one of the anniversary events, it was said that, oh, GIC from inception had a return of 5% above global inflation. So since global inflation was 3%, you add 5 to that, you get 8, which is in US dollar terms. So in Sing dollar terms, it's 6%. Now similarly, we don't know what is the actual interest paid out to all the members because you have ordinary account 2.5, special, retirement, Medisave 4, right? But we can estimate, we know the interest credited in the year, we divide that by the opening and closing balance of the CPF balances, we get 3.8%. So 6 minus 3.8%, the difference is 2.2%. 2.2% multiplied by 6.9 trillion, that's 13.4 billion. The statistics are so horrible. So, come 3rd May, vote wisely. Vote for PAR, the People's Alliance for Reform. Thank you.
That was our first speaker, our current oldest member, Mr. Leong Zi Hian, who gave you a breakdown of the statistics. And I think why I myself am very interested in PV and by extension PAR is coming from a financial background into numbers, right? We could be the only party that keeps on speaking about the statistics and the number and the data that the government releases, such as PMET or Associate PMET real wage increase across the last 20 years, the HDB prices up by about 157%, but only incomes for associate professionals is only up about 57% in the last 20 years. We also speak about like 91% of jobs growth in the last 3 years that went to foreigners and locals without breakdown of how much Singaporeans and how much permanent residents get out of the remaining 8 to 9%. So I will be introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker is a preschool educator currently pursuing her master's degree in inclusive education, Miss Vigneshwari Ramachandran. Please step forward.
Good evening, everybody. I am Vigneshwari and I'm running for Jalan Besar GRC. I'm here to talk about how we can cut down on unnecessary government expenses. What I wish to actually point out is the mayors. We do not need to have mayors in the country, and we feel in part that the mayor's role is redundant. So why do I say this? Denise Phua recently announced that she clarified the role of the mayors. So what the mayors actually do is they supposedly link community projects to the regional projects. So they are not considered to be estate managers, and the role of MPs does not fall under them as well. So what they require to do is actually to be a middle person to combine the efforts of community projects with regional help, and so that's how we get our CDC, our bursaries, our scholarships, and our fundings and sponsorships. But what I'm here to argue is the MPs are able to take on this role, like how they had actually taken it on during the time of Lee Kuan Yew. So during the time of Lee Kuan Yew, when there were only MPs without the mayor, it was actually quite effectively run, and they did a good job, apparently. And in the recent years, they called upon for the mayors to actually take on these additional roles, which caused each mayor $660,000 in their salary, which is a waste in the government budget. And I wish to touch on free education. In our manifesto, it's already stated how we are going to fund for this free education. This free education is actually going to help special needs children and students. They are often forgotten in society and they make up a minority. They do not have a return on investment as most believe, and they do not enjoy economies of scale. However, we need to consider that when you have free education, this group of children and young adults would actually benefit in society. We cannot just shun them aside just because they have special needs. Special needs actually include a variety, not only autism, but also disabilities, including blindness and deaf, being blind and deaf as well. So with this budget, with this budget surplus, we can actually help this group of people. And we would believe that as a society, when we progress in schools, the government has always been trying to have inclusivity in special needs children with regards to having mainstream education for special needs children. They had it in their enabling budget years ago as well as in 2030. But there's not much progress. The progress is actually very, very gradual. And why is this so? They would claim that they do not have the budget because this group actually require a lot of money. And as I mentioned before, they do not enjoy economies of scale and a return on investment as most believe. So, having free education would actually benefit them, including assistive technology, training for teachers, and it will curb the problems of bullying and harassment in schools for them. This coming 3rd of May, please vote wisely. If we win, you win. Thank you.
So you heard Fitnesh's speech of if we win, you win, because we are actually fighting for Singaporeans' causes, and we believe in being inclusive and leaving no one behind, because a society or community or nation is only as strong as its weakest member or its weakest link, similar to how a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Our next speaker is my teammate from Tanjong Pagar GRC, Mr. Rickson Giao.
Good evening. My name is Rickson Giao. I'm from the Tanjong Pagar GRC. Okay. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a safety consultant, advisor, manager, and officer with a proven track record. High pressure environment. My career has been defined by unwavering dedication to safety, innovation, and excellency. I've been working with Singapore Corpus Offshore Private Limited since from 2016 to 2019. I have achieved safety man hours of more than 12.390 million man hours. And subsequently, I was also engaged in Penta Ocean for 9 months. I have a good track record of safety manpower of more than 1.39 million man hours. Okay, why do I say this? With my proven safety record, I'm able to assess the risk of the project and scope. So, okay, because of this, I'm able to help our fellow citizens to have a better wages instead of being a cleaner of 1,002 to $800. I would strongly recommend for them to work as a safety supervisor. Why do I say this? Because we are the local, we know the safety better than foreigners. So this is our home background. We have a basic communication network. So, and this safety supervisor course, you only need to have understanding of English, speaking of English, and writing of simple English, and plus a simple maths. And these courses are all conducted by NTUC. So I suggest that those middle-aged dishwasher and cleaner, you should take up this course. And once you have passed this course, your pay should be around $2,500 to about $3,000. You should be able to get. So looking forward, my vision for Tanjong Pagar is on job security. As earlier mentioned, is upgrading yourself to become a safety supervisor. So I strongly urge my fellow Singaporean to vote for PAR Tanjong Pagar with support, and hopefully when we are in Parliament, we will implement and help more people, Singaporean, to achieve this good job. Thank you.
Okay, you heard my colleague Mr. Rickson here, our safety officer, safety advisor and consultant, having a plan for people of lower wages income to actually take up courses and earn a bit higher as safety officers or safety supervisors. Okay, our next speaker is the candidate for Radin Mas SMC. Sometimes we call him Mr. Radin Mas because Mr. Kumar Apawu is a familiar face and has contested a few times at Radin Mas itself. And if you are a Radin Mas resident, you would have seen a lot of his cool promotional bags. Yeah, he gave that goodie bags. With printed. So Mr. Kumar actually is involved in business and building management and construction. So from my experience, it's very orderly. So he's one of the guys that you want to run your town council. Everything comes in a file, in a plan, very organized, very meticulous. Yeah. So I'll invite Mr. Kumar Apawu.
Hi, fellow Singaporeans and my dear voters and residents of Radin Mas. Welcome to our e-rally talk today. As you know, we are coming to the tail end of our campaign. In another an hour or so, we have to go back to the rules and regulations of Singapore law. As you know, soon we have to go to the ballot box. Now I'd like to bring back to you something that you have always been raising about recently. Cost of living, high cost of HDB flats, high cost of healthcare, high cost of education are fundamental things that a family needs to survive. As you know, the reason for all these issues that came up all this while for the cost of living to go up, it is because of a generation of our TFR being slackened over the years. If we are going to be managing our TFR as way back as 2 generations back, we wouldn't have that kind of issues today. But to encourage that, there's only one solution that you have to do, because it's all within the system that you have to take the most steps. First and foremost, when you go to the ballot box, the numbers of opposition should increase, because when there is an increase in opposition, the government will make every effort to do their part in making Singaporeans to survive through this difficult period. Without you making the additional move to put in more opposition, you will still be status quo. don't be worried. If there's going to be more opposition, never has Singapore slided back in their GDP. In every election since the last 2 elections, the numbers of opposition has increased. What made the increase is because the confidence of opposition has gone up. And I think when come on the 3rd, there will be quite a number of opposition that will increase, and this will happen on this day because with the increase of opposition, the PAP will be able to answer us and make concerted effort to make their bold move to ramp up and save the Singaporeans from the cost of living. So remember, when we don't make any move, it's going to cause a lot of issues to backslide. So what I want to ask you is, at the end of the day, Singaporeans need a voice in Parliament. But remember, when we are in Parliament, in the opposition side, we will only be able to influence the policy but not change the policy. But the numbers as they increase, we will be more effective. But the other end is, when we have the control of the town council, we will have what we call a certain avenue or certain leverage that we can do even better than the incumbent in some areas. So what I'm trying to say it is, Singaporeans needs your help on 3rd of May. When you make the bold move, everything will be much better in the years to come. So what we need now is the influx of opposition to show to the government that we are serious to build better Singapore for Singaporeans tomorrow. As for Redimas residents, my wish is to serve you when come 3rd of May. What I can bring up to you is, I only can bring issues to influence the policy. But one exceptional case that I can bring you is to improve what we call the town planning of Redimas. As I said, Redimas is now going to a pace where we have a very high proportion of aging population. And we need amenities, we need other services in order to serve the aging population. At the same time, in order to increase the TFR, we must have a conducive environment for our younger generation who are parents to have more kids. So one possible avenue is to have a free education, reduce the cost of healthcare and other amenities so that they will be able to be having a situation where they will be comfortable to live a better life and have more kids, so that we will have a lower dependency on the influx of foreigners, one avenue, and the other one is we will be better managing our country in many ways. So now I'd like to tell you, please give me a choice, give me a chance, then come 3rd of May. Thank you.
So you just heard Mr. Kumar Pavu, who is running for Radin Mas. So all you Radin Mas residents out there, you guys vote for Mr. Kumar Pavu from PAR, the People's Alliance for Reform. We want to send him into Parliament to speak up about an array of issues such as Radin Mas aging population, town planning and stuff. So send him into Parliament. Our next speaker is also my Tanjong Pagar GRC teammate, Mr. So Lian Chai. He is a senior logistic assistant by profession, and he will be speaking to you in Hokkien.
Thưa quý tôi đến trái, khi nào đi cái những cái không can tan này được đi con, nó là tiền của huy, thì cái theo luôn tiền của quay. 咱讲什么？咱讲是这900点的 GST 啊，无可得，就是讲建筑简单的是到900点尔。因为这食物件，早起咱食一碗面3块2条，拜4、5块。因为900点这算过来一盒啊，总共算过来5千至100点几啊。如果咱叫这韩国讲，就是这无比较起安咯。因为我当时就讲啊，因阿毛迄讲啊，本就讲啊出来咯。所以今日我是讲，在简单通讲着，我希望讲你来听伊人的英文的啊，希望你会了解安咯，就这意思。
So that was Mr. So Lian Chai. So if you're in Tanjong Pagar, you vote for Mr. So Lian Chai as well as myself. He brings with him a man of few words, but he brings with him an experience in the logistic industry, like the planning and like the movement or storage of goods and services. So he brings across an experience which can be tapped into for town council work and issue. So I would introduce you next is our Jalan Besar GRC candidate, and she is a nurse by profession, and she is an English as well as a Malay speaker, and a very passionate person. You heard her in the rallies. She was bringing up issues and speaking up on certain topics which were somewhat, needed to be spoken about, but were sensitive, but she did a fantastic job. So if you're a Jalan Besar resident, please do consider voting for Miss Sarina. I would like to call Miss Sarina right now to take this space.
Thank you, Prabhu. Good evening, fellow Singaporeans. I'm Sarina Buasan, and I'm contesting Jalan Besar GRC. Thank you all for your support. If really Singaporeans are well taken care of, there will not have been more oppositions party in this small country. As much as we can understand about the challenges the PAP team is facing right now, reshuffling and changes made for a fresh start. Why does it take so long until now? Then kickstart and rebuild his team when the damage is already done? What happened? We trust the government so much, and that this has happened. So where are the check and balance? That is why it's about time that the opposition presence in the parliament are definitely necessary to ensure that this cycle don't get recycled. If an MP has lost his seat, he or she can return or redesignate to another position in a company of his choice. Isn't that logic? Recent news stated employment rate ticked up slightly in the first quarter of 2025, and that shows citizens' unemployment rate was slightly higher than residents. My fellow Singaporeans, 2 to 3 years ago, 90% new jobs growth created went to foreign talent. Balance goes to local, but no statistics to break down which are to Singaporeans and which are to PRs. Okay, now let's talk about investing in Singaporean children. How to fund free education and free healthcare for children. To give free healthcare for children, the shortage of funds is $10 billion. Current spending of $20 billion for the entire population. To give free education is short by $10 billion. Current spending, $15 billion. Here's what the government isn't using. $13.4 billion, difference between CPF investment returns and interest to members. $6.4 billion is in the 2024 budget surpluses. Just raising NIRC, as the net investment return contribution, from 50% to 60% gives $5 billion more. That's $24.8 billion unlocked without raising taxes. After spending $20 billion, there is still $4.8 billion remaining. If needed, there's additional $22.05 billion in special transfers. Why special transfers can be used? It's charging expenditure of future years as current 1 year's expenditure in the budget. There are further $40 billion budget surpluses from 1999 to 2019. Like what our Mr. Lim Tian has mentioned, I quote, "It's the duty of the government to look after the well-being of Singaporeans," unquote. We will urge and raise these concerns if elected and bring back those smiles, space and pride as a Singaporean again. Vote for PAR, vote for PAR, vote for People Alliance Reform Party. Kehadapan semua yang disayangi, saya Sarina Abu Hassan, calon Jalan Besar GRC. Terima kasih atas sokongan semua. Jika benar rakyat Singapura dijaga dengan baik, tidak akan ada lebih banyak parti pembangkang di negara yang sekecil ini. Sebanyak mana kita boleh memahami tentang cabaran yang dihadapi oleh pasukan PAP sekarang, rombakan dan perubahan telah dibuat untuk permulaan baru. Mengapa yang mengambil masa yang begitu lama untuk pembentukan ini? Kemudian ingin membina semula pasukannya apabila kerosakan sudah pun berlaku? Apa yang berlaku? Kita sangat mempercayai pemerintah dan ini telah berlaku. Jadi di mana semak dan imbangnya? Sudah tiba masanya kehadiran pembangkang di parlimen adalah sangat diperlukan untuk memastikan kitaran ini tidak berulang. Jika seorang ahli parlimen telah kehilangan kerusinya, dia boleh kembali atau ditugaskan semula ke jawatan lain dalam syarikat pilihan beliau. Itu adalah logik. Jadi pada ketika ini, undi anda sangatlah penting dan parti pembangkang akan mencubit pasukan yang tertidur di dalam parlimen. Kami komited untuk berkhidmat kepada rakyat Singapura. Kami mahu berbakti, bukan publicity. Orang Singapura tertekan, tidak gembira. Kenapa? Kerana terlalu percaya sehingga kan banyak hal telah berlaku dan juga pekerjaan kami diambil alih dan kami rasa terpinggir. Saya memetik apa yang diterbitkan semasa perhimpunan PAP baru-baru ini. Encik Lawrence Wong menyebut satu keseimbangan yang lebih baik. Satu keseimbangan yang lebih baik di mana kita bekerja keras untuk memastikan kehidupan kita. Bekerja keras? Ya, kami telah dan sedang lakukan. Tetapi, adakah PAP bekerja keras? Jika menteri-menteri atau Datuk Bandar telah bekerja keras dan agensi-agensi di bawah bidang kuasa mereka juga bekerja keras, kadar jenayah, kadar pembunuhan, pengabaian, penyalahgunaan dada, penderahan aiwan dan sebagainya akan hampir tiada atau sangat-sangat rendah. Rakan-rakan Singapura yang saya hormati, 2 hingga 3 tahun lalu, 90% pertumbuhan pekerjaan baru yang dicipta pergi kepada bakat asing. Lebihnya pergi kepada tempatan, tetapi tiada statistik untuk memecahkan yang mana kepada rakyat Singapura dan yang mana kepada PR. Seperti yang saya sebutkan dalam perhimpunan saya sebelum ini, saya percaya kita boleh merealisasikan usul-usul PAR di parlimen. Pelaburan untuk kanak-kanak Singapura. Bagaimana untuk membiayai pendidikan percuma dan penjagaan kesihatan percuma untuk kanak-kanak. Untuk memberikan penjagaan kesihatan percuma kepada kanak-kanak, pembelanjaan semasa 20 bilion untuk seluruh populasi. Memberi pendidikan percuma kekurangan sebanyak 10 bilion, pembelanjaan semasa 15 bilion. Inilah apa yang tidak digunakan oleh pemerintah. 13.4 bilion perbezaan antara pulangan pelaburan CPF dan faedah kepada ahli. Lebihan bajet 6.4 bilion pada 2024. Hanya menaikkan NIRC dari 50 ke 60% memberikan tambahan 5 bilion. Itu adalah 24.8 bilion yang dibuka. Terdapat lebihan bajet sebanyak 40 bilion lagi dari tahun 1999 hingga 2019. Seperti yang telah disebutkan oleh Encik Lim Tian kita, saya petik, tanggungjawab pemerintah adalah untuk menjaga kesejahteraan Singapura. Akhir kata, PAR, Parti Perikatan Pembaharuan, ingin berbakti dan bukan publicity. Undilah PAR, ambil kembali milik anda. Terima kasih. Selamat malam.
So thank you, Sarina, for that very rousing speech, both in English as well as in Malay. So for all of you guys who are watching and right now, please do consider contributing any amount that you wish to pay now 92230514. I repeat, pay now or pay la to 92230514. 14. Okay, so you heard Ms. Sarina bringing up about voting for PAR. So I would like to ask you guys once again, if you are located in Potong Pasir SMC, vote for PAR. If you are in Jalan Besar GRC, vote for PAR. If you are in Tanjung Pagar GRC, vote for PAR. If you are in Radin Mas SMC, vote for PAR. If you are in Queenstown SMC, vote for PAR. Our next speaker is the candidate for Yio Chu Kang SMC himself, Dr. Michael Fang. He is currently educated as a medical doctor and currently a healthcare lecturer, as well as lectures in other scientific topics. So I would invite Dr. Michael Fang to take this place and speak to you guys, as well as wider Singaporeans and Yio Chu Kang residents. Thank you.
Hello, hi everyone. I'd like to take the seat basically here, facing Prabhu, right, as the guest speaker for today. Hello, yes, 你好，你们好。我今天讲华语可以吗？希望能让你们比较对这个政治比较有兴趣。对，我是现在在洋错港竞选的所以大家应该知道我在洋错港了吧？OK， 我是方案民医生，我现在已经是兼读法律。所以我希望能进国会代表你们做一个声音代表人民的辛苦跟辛酸每个人都有很说不出的辛酸跟辛苦，尤其在这个时代跟年代OK， 来我们来讲第一点为什么要投我们？因为一个国会如果没有反对的声音，或是一个能提出好建议的声音，这个世界上就跟着一党壮大，一党壮大的制度并不是很好的制度给你们，因为人民要有更多的声音，国会才有更多的建议，更多的建议我们才能采取更好的措施来帮忙你们所谓来讲 ，more voices is actually healthy, right, in Parliament。所以我们并不是为了反对政府而反对也没政府是由人民选出来的BAB 只是一个党，我们也是一个党在大选之前大家平等所以我希望你们能了解这一点。如果选民能做出对的决定，让更多的声音进国会，我们就有比较好的idea， 就是思维，而且在全世界上竞争力会比较强。所以我们现在了解这个世界很动荡，我明白。可是世界越动荡有时候对新加坡越好。为什么我这么讲呢？因为好像如果美国跟中国在斗争中互相引起关税，你认为生意呢会跑去那些低的关税的国家呢，还是高的关税的国家？当然是低的关税的国家。在一个自由世界里人家的竞争是相比提论的，所以如果说中国的关税是134%，我们的关税才18%，你认为生意会把他们的企业移到哪里去呢？当然是比较低的关税。所以在短期内会有很多动荡，人家会失业，很多东西会发生。但是在中期跟长期方面，这个其实对我们来讲很乐观，所以我们并没有小看这个关税的严重性。我们明白，短期内人家失业是很严重的东西，所以我们也是会出4个策略4点。第一是做一个蓝海计划，就是说我们要把我们的小企业推行到国外，不只是偏偏把钱放进投资大的外国企业，而是帮助我们自己的人寻找其他的市场，为中小企业提供低利息的贷款，这个很重要。建立所谓的利息经济，就是 niche economy。niche economy is very important。还有降低经营成本，就是把生意的经营成本降低。这个对那些中等或 稍微比较中上等的人在做生意的，一定有好处。因为为什么呢？小生意跟中等生意就是新加坡聘请的员工最大的一个部分，大概78%的员工就是由他们聘请的。所以呢，我们是一个很周全、很安全的党，所以不用怕。第二点，我们要讲的是移民建议。所以啊，我们在这个移民问题方面，我们可以待人诚恳，以平等的地位待另外一个国家的人。可是我们完全不可以接受一个国家，大的国家把他们的1%、2%、3%的人民需要工作的，义无反顾的把他们带进我们国家，因为我们国家是小的，我们要明白这一点。我们把我们的人放进别的国家，1%他们可以接受，可是你要把印度1%的人带进新加坡，你要把中国1%的人带进新加坡，我问你一下，我们新加坡到底是一个大国，还是我们能容忍那么多人吗？所以这个一定要思考，为什么你带那么多人进来，你生活成本不提高？如果我这个人可以付10块钱一个面包，你只可以付1块钱一个面包，你认为面包的价格会怎么样？这是很简单很基本的问题，不只是食物方面、医疗方面、transport 方面啊，这些都会被影响。所以我们各个方面，在这么多人数进来我们新加坡的时候，我们不可以承受，我们可以以平等待遇接受一些我们需要的人。所以那些进来需要的人，我们可以接受，可是太多我们不可以接受，而且太多人以平等的人民权 the same as our local citizens， 我们完全不可以接受。为什么？因为这等于把我们的工作啊，我们这里国家的工作给别的国家的人。你认为在这种情况下是什么样的条约呢？我认为只有4个字，是个丧权辱国的条约。好比中国跟美国还是英国签的那种条约，8国联军你有没有听过吗？我希望你们有听过这个故事，因为我们不可以把自己的利益给外国人，让我们自己的孩子没有饭吃啊，我们的老婆没有屋子住。你们几个人在外面已经把工作饭碗丢给外国人了，你们知道吗？这个问题我留给你们答。好，而且你把这么多外国人进来，他们可以以低薪水过活，你呢？你怎么跟你老婆孩子们交代？你要不要一个薪水比较适合你生活水平的啊，能维持一种希望，你孩子能有好的教育、好的后果、好的未来，是不是？你工作的那么辛苦，是不是为了这些？这是第2点，我要你们反思的。所以 ，CEGA 这个条约是把我们的 freedom of movement， 就是说把我们自由流动权的这个权利交给外国人，他们可以来新加坡，像我们人民一般这样，去找工作，无忧无虑的在法律上找工作。如果真的我们需要这些外国人，我们也不需要签这个合约嘛，对不对？外国人来可以聘请 visa 来去找工作，为什么我们要丧失我们的权利，让这么多外国人无忌惮的进来啊，拿我们的工作？你认为对不对？你认为赞同的话，你们认为赞同的话，就站在我这里啊，你们可以拍手放很多 hearts 啊，什么东西，叫你朋友进来看。为什么？因为我们的发的信息很重要，所以我们要 stop expat， 我们那些工作啊，我们新加坡人可以做的，我们不可以让给外国人。这过去3年来，有91.3%的工作啊，留给外国人，已经跑去外国人那边了啊。他的 job increase，OK， 我在想，可是，所以外国人的就业岗位已经到了91.3%，其余的8.71% 是留给不一定是新加坡公民啊，是留给永久居民跟新加坡人。 所以你想想一下，政府为什么不要把永久居民跟我们本地人这个数字来跟他们讲清楚？为什么？因为这个数字后面有一个很可怕的故事。一个永久居民来新加坡，我问你一下啊，如果你算1年比1年，那个永久居民会不会变成新加坡公民呢？你们有没有想过这一点？所以它的数字比它那个8.78%更可怕。所以我们必须把工作留给新加坡人，这是我们党的政策，而且180%的人力资源管理要由新加坡人来掌控，你同意吗？你同意？掌声一下，而且给我很多 like， 还有叫你朋友进来。为什么？我们不是因为 like 而来，我们真的是因为由心而来。我们要把新加坡还回给新加坡人民，这个 SIGA 一定要 abolish， 这是我的政党的政策。OK， 一定要把新加坡还回给新加坡人，掌声鼓励鼓励，谢谢谢谢。而且我们最重要的是生活成本建议，我们要取消 GST， 从9%到7%，而且那些必需品啊，好像牛奶粉啊，不是每个牛奶粉一样的，婴孩要吃牛奶粉啊，他们有特别的所以我们要牛奶粉方面啊，不要有 GST。第二点，柴米油盐不要有 GST， 人们已经过得很辛苦了，你把7%到9%啊，很多生意在外面啊，也被弄垮了。你们自己在街上看，你们知道这个是事实。我们不是在吓你们，所以除此之外，你知道吗？你买的公共主屋里面其实包括了设施空间的资金，这笔资金 actually 可以代替你的 SCC 主屋服务费，可以代替你的一部分的水电费、停车费，甚至可以免费，完全不用支付。这些都是因为你付了那个 HDB， 这些你楼下的设施都是 actually 属于你的。政府不要还回给公民为什么？他们反而用在很多其他的方面所以这个建议其实不错的，因为好像如果我们说我们巴地也是跟丹君博一样，丹君博他们建议Sunday free parking， 你星期天免费，可是我们不同，我们认为这个数字你算起来老实讲可以讨论可不可以一整个周免费整个月免费，这个其实是做到的，因为法律上来讲，这个就是为什么你买屋子高也是物价高的其中原因，因为你包括了这些也是，所以没有道理嘛。为什么不可以给人家免费停车费为什么不可以包含一些水电费？你知道我们的穷人的水电费付不起，很惨的，你知道吗？孩子没有水喝所以还有 SCC actually 是可以免的，所以他们在给你这些 CDC 包折之后这些东西有没有想过，本来你需要付的吗 ？OK， 我们有义务保障新加坡人，让新加坡再次成为我们的家园。我们 OK， 最终我要讲4点，我们最好只是检讨，而且更便宜化，更让人家负担得起的生活成本。第一，我们一定要做到这一点，如果进国会的话。第二点我们要做的是要保存你们的储蓄金，要一年的比一年的多so called build generational wealth. We must bring Singapore back for Singaporeans again. 第三点，我们要保障新加坡人的工作，不要让外国人无辜的侵犯。每个外国人来一定必须要教会我们的新加坡公民，不然我们送他回去，不用紧的。这个我讲简单话我把东西分析得很清澈，一针见血。OK， 第4点，我们要检讨我们的医疗保健要更便宜化。如果好像为什么说呢？我们的出院的那些药品为什么不可以用 Medisave cover？ 为什么不可以用 Medishield claim？ 完全不对嘛！ ，Medishield 是 risk sharing， 是大家平等分这个危险的，来支付医疗保健 ，OK， 而且每年 OK， 2020年的时候我们调查发现过，新加坡人花每2块 ，OK， 只有1块支付出去你的医疗保健，所以为什么呢？他们已经赚了180,000，难道不可以给你们提供比较便宜的医疗保健吗？就是说 medical cost can be capped actually， 因为 for every $2 you put in，out of Medishield it pays one back。So 如果你在想这个层次的话，为什么 OK？ 如果说一个 reasonable government， 一个合理政府，为什么不可以说我增加多一点 Medishield 不用钱？可是你的 minimum sum actually 可以全数还回吗？你有必要收这 minimum sum 吗？而且他们讲，如果进 opposition 的话会危险，怎么危险呢？会比现在你的生活更危险吗？第二点你要知道 ，OK， 梁振英有讲过他以前有跟我提过，140亿新元 is the difference between CPF and the rate of interest return。那你存这140亿嘞，没有跟你们讲还有讲反对党是危险，还有再加上OK， 去年预算盈余额是60亿 ，OK， 再加2020年之前的20年预算盈余额有大概400亿新元。去年1年有一个很奇怪的东西发生，就是有220亿的新元特别转移支付于未来几年的开销。我从来没有听过一个国家现在要花的你放去50年后，这个是荒谬之极嘛。所以你看看这些数目字可以不可以支付我们免费的医疗保健？一定可以的嘛。尤其看在儿童方面我们可以从儿童慢慢渐检讨到老人前，我们不是不合理的一个党。所以这些数字你们有想过吗？你算这些数字，难道不可以支付我们新加坡公民吗？还有，如果真的政府还没有钱，为什么他们把这么多钱流动给外国人当奖学金？为什么不会用来给我们的孩童支付免费的早餐，还是牛奶，让他们有一个充分的牛奶跟早餐来应对学业？为什么呢？为什么不要帮我们自己的人弄好学业费之类的东西？为什么要给外国人？所以对不起，我的华语可能不到水准，但是我已经很尽量了。我在这边帮你们讲出一句话一句公道话 ，OK， 希望你们能发这些给朋友们，让他们知道，不是每一个反对党都是一样的，可是我们都是有经过深思熟虑的反对党。不要看我们的讲话比较直接，因为我们是试过这个思路过为来举出这个阶段的，好像 SEGA Freedom of Movement of People in Europe， 你看变成多惨本地人没工作做，还要给外国人给了外国人，他们还有跟人民平等的权利。那么我们当人民是为了什么呢？所以我们一定要争取我们的基本生活权利、基本工作权利、基本医疗权利。李光耀帮我们建设的这个国家应该由我们现代 PAR 的成员继续这个工作，帮你们确保以后不会有一个单独一面的政府，人家有公正的平等，而且这些东西我们可以讨论。如果说国家没有钱，我们也不会硬来。所以因此我可以很肯定的跟你讲，我们根本不需要动到 reserve 来实行这个不是靠我讲的，你们去看看数字为什么要很穷？你一直压迫人家的这个给你这么多税过后又讲反对党没有钱实行这个，没有钱实行那个，经济上面是危险的。 不是这个问题嘛，也不是这个情况嘛，所以我们要以理智的方法来选我们下一个政府，理智的方法来选我们的反对党，因为这个政府老实来讲是实在了很多年要有一点时间改变我们并不打算取代他们，而是想帮他们进步希望大家能给我们机会，帮助你们，不是帮助我们，是帮助你们建设更美好、更完美的新加坡。谢谢。
Okay, that was Dr. Michael Fang, our candidate for Yio Chu Kang SMC. So if you are living in the block 100 plus, the 200 plus, the 600 plus, as well as the Lentor areas, Lentor private estates, consider voting for Dr. Michael Fang. He will question the government's policies and raise relevant alternatives or objections to unfair policies in Parliament. So you guys have heard an array of candidates speak so far. I would like to just take a bit bits and pieces from here and there. The GST especially. Which government in the world, no other government, while we were coming out of a global pandemic, the economy was just recovering, not once but raised taxes 2 times. The GST went up from 7% to 8% and following which 8% to 9%. No other government in the world. In fact, other governments were reducing certain taxes at that given point of time to alleviate the burden from the citizens. But well, we are uniquely Singapore, and we have all MPs, apart from being ministers, were full-time MPs. Why can't MPs be full-time MPs, given that the MP allowance is close to 3 times of the average median income? MPs can be and should be full-time MPs, dedicating their time to their constituents. I mean, put it this way, not everyone works office hours. Right now, the current scheme of things where Meet the People sessions are in the evening favors office hour working staff. Let's say the guy is working night shift, he never gets to see his MP. No matter, you get the point, like if he works afternoon shift or night shift, he just doesn't get to see his MP in the Meet the People session. So if a need arises to see his MP to get some sort of letter or some sort, these people would fall through the crack or fall behind. So I would advocate strongly for MPs to be full-time MPs. They should probably come up with a legislation of sorts. And of course, you see, apart from being full-time MPs, we do not want MPs full-time or part-time sleeping in Parliament. Well, if you have PAR MPs, if you have me in Parliament, I would make sure that the PAP MPs would not sleep in Parliament. If you have Han Hui Hui or Lim Tian or Dr. Michael Fang or any of my colleagues, well, they might not just sleep not in Parliament alone, they might not sleep at home at night as well. Because we would be asking them the tough questions on the numbers, why they are what they are, and how do we solve them together. Well, people are always telling us that we are pointing out problems, we are pointing out problems, we are complaining, but what are our solutions? Well, for one, the cost of living, we do have certain solutions. The solution firstly is to not have GST on essentials, or we should follow a tiered system. For example, let's say the very basic necessity of food, right? Like for food on the hawker stores or coffee shops and sorts, no GST. But let's say someone were to go to some Marina Bay Sands or Ritz-Carlton where one dinner costs about $100 or $200, that probably we could tax GST because it's a luxury. So there must be a tiered system. When I'm speaking about this, I remember Goh Chok Tong mentioned, he can't differentiate a necessity being between a luxury all those many years ago, and I hope after so many years, the PAP MPs and ministers now can differentiate what is a necessity and what is a luxury. Alright, I would like to give you to our next speaker, who is a political veteran across a few parties. He was a bit of an intro trivia. He was a founding member of the Singapore People's Party, along with the late Mr. Sin Kek Tong. And his name is Mr. Hamim Elias, currently the Secretary General of the Democratic Progressive Party, who are our allies under the People's Alliance for Reform, a seasoned campaigner, a businessman, and he has got a lot of interesting topics, and as well as not just the current political development, like the old political stories to share with us, and usually it's very interesting to listen. We could listen to him for hours and hours on hand. So, but today we only have a short while, so Mr. Hamim Elias will take this space.
Hi, hello, everyone. Okay. I'm Muhammad Amin bin Alias, Secretary General of Democratic Progressive Party. And then now we are alliance with People's Alliance for Reform. Okay. So regarding about this general election, okay, you have to think hard, voters. You have to think hard. In the last 5 years, in the last 5 years, about 62% vote for the PAP. Look where we are now, where lots of things happening about the GST. You see, from 3%, the increase is about 9% today. So everybody suffering, and then the global inflation is coming also. So after the global inflation coming, they increase 7, 8, and 9. So the thing, everything, cost of living is so expensive now. You see? And then they still made a surplus of $6.4 billion Singapore. See, what's this? Every Singaporean is suffering, including me. Yes. So the cost of living is crashing. Inflation is in a poor and hardest. Half of us don't earn enough, okay, to pay the income tax, but we paying the price. Another, Singaporean jobs security. A lot of foreigners come in Singapore to replace Singaporean workers. In 20 years, last 20 years, they said, the PAP said, we bring all the professional, doctors, lawyers, engineers. They said they bring in professional. But now, a lot of workers, same like us, same like everybody, they replace us. They replace the Singaporean. Now they never talk about the professional. What is this? They try to turn the thing around, make this thing sweet, and then vote for them. But you must think hard for your children, for your future, for your children's future. Don't trust that PAP are saying, we bring professional. No, you can see now a lot of foreign workers, a lot of the unprofessional coming. Some more, they got fake degree. Is it what you want? Singaporean, every aspect of life is horrible. Okay, regarding about the tax, Singapore, so many tax. We got GST tax, we got property tax, we got water tax. Now talking about water tax, is up to 18% tax. Who have to pay? We Singaporeans have to pay. So they accumulate tons of money for their projects. But who's suffering? Please think hard. This coming election, think very hard about the skill future they introduce. They teach to become a toilet cleaner. Yeah, that's the idea of skill upgrading. Is it good? What do you think? And then in the FOCMA, to silence all the decent not protected by the citizen. See, it's always for them. So we have to listen about the FOCMA. Regarding about the MRT, okay? You see, last few months, the MRT always break down. Oh, they said, 3 times background, which natural. So they got no investigation about COI, investigate why the thing is breaking down. So actually they have to find what is the fault. So to make Singaporean life better in transportation when they go to work, to and fro. But every week that time breaking down. So it's incompetent for them. Mobile guardian hacks, thousands of students exposed. Exposed about their exam. Okay, and then about PM Lee. We talk about PM Lee, Prime Minister. That time, he's the Prime Minister of Singapore. PM Lee. Silent about Tan Juan Jin, the Speaker of Parliament, had a scandal with the MP also. So he quiet. He knows about that. About 3 years ago, he commit in the Parliament, but why got no action taken? Capel Brazil bribery scandal. Everyone knows already. Still silent. Why is this? No name, no consequences. About gerrymandering, regarding about the line to stay in power. So they are in the West Coast GRC, in Marine Parade GRC, until further up to Bradle. They always saying that, why in Bradle, why my GRC become Marine Parade very far away? So what's this? So, please, you have to think hard. Voters, please think hard. A lot of things is happening in under PAP government. So we have to make Singapore change the government to more opposition in parliament. I think this coming election, surely they can become the government. You know why? Now, 5 MPs walk over easily. No contest. For sure. Very easy. Nobody contest. Okay. So, please voters, this coming GE, vote for us. Vote for People's Alliance for Reform. Vote for PAR. But we have to send a strong signal, strong message to the PAP that the opposition will go to parliament, checks and balance. No self check. Own self check, own self no. Please Singaporean. Thank you. Can I speak in Malay? Just a bit. Okay, terima kasih. Selamat malam. Saya Muhammad Amin. Ya, berkenaan pilihan raya kali ini, selepas 5 tahun apa yang telah berlaku, pemerintah PAP menjadi kerajaan. Jadi mereka menaikkan GST daripada 7 ke 8 dengan 9. Tapi sebelum tu, global inflation telah ada. Selepasnya pandemik, sepatutnya kita ramai yang tak bekerja dan kekurangan dana untuk duit kocek kita untuk belanja. Tapi dia naikkan GST daripada 7, 8, 9. Itu yang membuat harga barang makanan di tempat kedai makan, di kedai kopi, di kedai hawker center dan di tempat-tempat awam, semua barang naik. Di pasar pun mereka ataupun rakyat berbincang dan berjumpa dengan kita. Bila kita berjalan-jalan jumpa mereka ataupun walk about, mereka mengeluh, barang sekarang semuanya mahal. Jadi bagaimana? Jadi kita mesti nak more opposition, banyakkan pembangkang dalam parlimen, sebabnya kita boleh berdebat dengan mereka. Kenapa tak bolehnya GST naik gini? Kenapa? Jadi kalau kita berdebat untuk satu-satu isu, untuk satu-satu polisi, ada perdebatan yang hangat, ya, jadi keluarlah timbul yang baik untuk Singapura. Jadi begitu. Jadi udikan kita masuk dalam parlimen. Saya bertanding di GRC Jalan Besar. Ada teman-teman saya bertanding di Tanjung Pagar GRC. Ada Potong Pasir SMC under PAR. Queenstown SMC, Radin Mas SMC, Yio Chu Kang SMC. Undilah kita untuk masuk ke dalam parlimen, untuk check and balance dengan kerajaan PAP, supaya rakyat tak menderita. Kita mesti nak berbuat begitu. Kalau tidak, dia menang besar lagi, kita semua hampa. Akan naik lagi lah tax property lah, tax air lah, tax itulah. Berapa banyak tax yang kita kena bayar. Betul? Jadi banyak lagi saya nak cerita, tetapi fikirkan ini, undi ini, sebab dah lama mereka menjadi kerajaan. Jadi mereka tu membuat apa mereka suka. Cubalah ini kali dalam ini tahun ini, Ustaz, ini sampai 5 tahun akan datang lagi akan ada undi election. Jadi dalam ini tahun, undikan kita. Undikan People Alliance for Reform. Undikan PAR. Dan saya mohon supaya fikirkanlah apa yang berlaku sebelum ini. Semuanya naik, barang naik. Jadi selamat malam. Saya mohon maaf kalau ada silap. Jadi tapi yang penting undikan kita. Terima kasih. Selamat malam.
Okay, your next speaker tonight is none other than myself. So I'm currently running for Tanjung Pagar GRC. I'm Prabhu Ramachandran, and a lot of my colleagues have said about the cost of living, about the cost of unaffordable public housing. Okay, the public housing mechanism is broken right now. The prices will only keep on going up because of from the bottom is because the SLA charges HDB, which is both the government charging for land costs, alright? It's like the SLA charges HDB for land costs, which is essentially the government charging itself for land costs, while they are allowing PRs on the top end to buy resale housing. So resale housing is also pegged to BTO prices. So with these two mechanisms in play, the land cost mechanism as well as resale housing pricing mechanism to peg to BTO, the prices will keep on going up, and it is a bubble effect. It is a matter of time that it would pop, and it's not going to be pleasant. For many of those who are older would remember the 1997 bubble when it happened, the HDB prices. So right now, it's ridiculous that we have HDB resale prices $1 million, $1.3 million, 1.5, 1.7, and it's appearing closer to the $2 million mark. And do you think that with associate professionals, management and executive wages across the last 20 years only going up 57%, do you think our children would be able to afford a roof over their head? HDB's mission was supposed to provide public housing. It was never meant to be an asset enhancement. It was never meant to be speculative investment. So people always ask, how are we going to solve this problem? What are the solutions? First solution would be to not allow PRs to buy permanent residents to buy resale flats. That would be the first. And the second solution, of course, you can't do this both together. You've got to do it gradually to reduce land costs on a periodic review basis of 3 months to 6 months to see how the market reacts and reduce land costs, because land cost is like the HDB is being charged by SLA, is the government charging itself for land costs. So this could be solved. On the immigration front and the local workers front, okay, it's quite sad that among my walkabouts, I've seen diploma holders and degree holders come up to me and speak to me about not being able to find a job. Some even asked me if I was able to recommend them some job, or if I could write letter or refer to them and say, hey, I don't have much influence now, I'm not the MP yet at least. If I was your MP, I'll definitely write into whatever, but of course, whatever available resources to E2I and NTUC, I've pointed them in that way. Today is Labour Day, and Mr. Leong Zihian earlier spoke about the labour statistics. Why no PAP MP, or why no MP or NTUC labour chief or a labour movement or union are speaking about these statistics? That is the big question I would like to know. So people ask me, how do we solve this problem? First thing would be to stop issuing S-Pass temporarily. That would because the demand would still be there for the workers that S passes fill in. So gradually we would give this opportunity to our diploma poly graduates or our degree fresh graduates out of the university, because if they are in competition with experienced overseas engineers, professionals, management and executive and technicians, it is not an even playing field. And of course, we have got the currency exchange rate mechanism as well. There are a handful, I think about 300,000 to 500,000 Malaysians do not live in Singapore who could be taking up, who are coming in and out, doing all sorts of jobs. 300,000 to 500,000 Malaysians. Some of them could be taking up the associate, assistant, professional management, executive and technician jobs. And you know, the exchange rate is about between 1 to 3.3. So they could afford to take a lower Singapore dollar salary or income. However, our local Singaporeans just can't, because the cost of housing is up, the cost of healthcare is up, and the Medisave, Medishield premiums, and the cost of raising a family, and the cost of food, water, electricity, mobile internet, you name it, the basic essential of living in Singapore, all has gone up. PAP ministers and MPs, such as Grace Fu, comparing $5 bak chor mee to a $18 pasta. Well, with her salary and income, $5 bak chor mee affordable, $18 pasta affordable as well. But that's not the reality that is shared by the majority of us. So we PAR are average, decent, ordinary people, just like you voters and Singaporeans. So you should give us a chance to represent you in parliament, so that you know the elites and the establishment candidates from the PAP do not misrepresent you. Remember, many years ago they told us Swiss standard of living, but we got us delivered Swiss cost of living. You don't tell me in Switzerland, all right, the waiting time for hospital beds from the A&E to the bed, you've got to wait for 48 hours. That is not the case with them. Yeah. So the relentless influx of immigration is causing us strains on our buses, our trains, and our hospital systems. This has got to stop. We have to create skills-based and higher value employment and industries. We can't rely on the race to the bottom, cheaper, better, faster, and you know, just to raise GDP, get in more people to boost the consumer markets, such as like the utilities, mobile internet, as well as MRT trains and public buses. Yeah. I would also like, so I did speak to you guys about a couple of solutions in place to stop S passes and to regulate EP passes, as well as work permits, only when for a 1 month an employer who is unable to find a Singaporean worker, they have got to prove, alright, then be allowed to hire a work permit or an EP pass. That's our solution, but for temporary, S pass has got to be halted. On the public housing front, you know, the public housing front, our solution would be is to reduce land costs as well, paid to itself, the government, HDB and SLA, as well as to stop permanent residents from purchasing resale HDB. This would not cause the market to skyrocket out of reach for our children and their children, the next generations. Our total fertility rate is at 0.97. So who are we exactly putting into the reserves for? Our comprehensive budget that we have came up with does not need to raise taxes, does not need to touch past reserves. There is more than enough from operating fiscal budget surpluses, as well as special transfers and the returns on CPF, which is net paid, belongs to the members. After paying off to the members, there is still a net amount of returns that's there. You add up all this, we are able to give Singaporeans, young children born in Singapore, free childcare, free primary and secondary school, all the way up to university. It has been budgeted for. So please do not tell us, like, the fear mongering that the PAP MPs are telling us for 20 years worth of fear mongering. When opposition took over your town council will be turned into slums, and the opposition would like ruin the Singapore and all sorts of things. Well, you've seen it in Aljunied, Sengkang, Hougang. Has their towns turned into slums? The answer is no. So please do not fearmonger us. Another fear-mongering that has been going on is the Trump tariffs. This is, in fact, in this election campaign, they have talked about this uncertainty. We have brought out that Trump tariffs could be beneficial for us, because among the tariffs that is the Americans and President Trump is targeting is China is the highest, and of course Vietnam is slightly higher in our region. We are 10% of tariffs, all right? And we are in fact net customers of the Americans rather than net producers, which means we import more from the Americans than they buy from us, then we export to them. So that is one good point. And another thing is we are 10% lowest tier for tariffs. The UK as well as Australia as well 10% as compared to the other countries which are higher than 10%. So if business owners, if this Trump tariffs finalizes, business owners from Philippines, from the region, from China, from Vietnam, might want to set up holding companies or companies and manufacturing in Singapore, which might be actually beneficial for us. In the past, we used to have manufacturing in electronics, but however, as we move towards a financial and global financial base, we unfortunately gave up many of these manufacturing, but probably it's a good time to spread our eggs across more multiple baskets. So, we are a party that has solutions, but you know what? The government isn't listening, the PAP isn't listening, and even the mainstream media isn't listening. No one does. So if you want our solutions and our policies and our proposals to be heard, vote for PAR. Vote for the People's Alliance for Reform if you are in Jalan Besar GRC, Tanjong Pagar GRC, Potong Pasir SMC, Queenstown SMC, Radin Mas SMC, Yio Chu Kang SMC, and wider, vote for an alternative or vote for opposition in any part of Singapore. Why? Because look at the last elections, alright? 61% of Singaporeans voted for the PAP, 39% of Singaporeans voted for an alternative. However, you only got 10% representation with 2 NC MPs. That is not fair representation. We are about 28% voters are underrepresented in this first past the post system. So it's time to take back what belongs to you. Vote for the PAR. And of course, they kept telling us things like, you guys, when you're with voting patterns and stuff, they are now fear-mongering that they might lose a few ministers. Well, in 2011, George Yeo was voted out. Did the sky fall on us? Singapore operated as per, it was business as usual, and Singapore went about. In 2020, Ng Chee Meng and Lam Pin Yin, 2 of them were ministers, and as well as Amrin Amin, who was holding on to like some kind of parliamentary position, were voted out. 3 office holders. What happened? Did the sky fall on our head? No. So I am getting a bit sick and tired actually of this fear-mongering and this fear tactics. It's not working, alright? The real fear is to having little to no opposition to the PAP raising taxes like the GST, the PAP doing all sorts of things like constitutional amendment to the elected presidency and all sorts of funny things. So deny them 2/3 of majority. As I'm taking my leave right now, little has to be said about our party leader and our final speaker who would occupy this space after me, Mr. Lim Tian himself. So I would like to say, before I bring on Mr. Lim Tian, we have had a great 9 days campaign. I'm very proud that we didn't have any incidents of racism. We didn't have any incident across the 9 days of foreign interference. We didn't have any incident of any funny controversy. So I'm very proud actually of what we have managed to achieve across these 9 days. We have stuck to the issues and concerns and the policies that matter the most, and we went for the ball and the issues and not the person or the man. And we, Senior Minister Lee Hsien Loong brought up about personal attacks. We did not attack anyone personally, so this is a fact that I'm very proud of. We attacked the issues very hard, very heavy, but not the person. So I would leave you with Mr. Lim Tien. Thank you.
Good evening, my fellow Singaporeans. I am Lim Tien, the Secretary General of the PAR. I would also like to say a very good evening to the residents of Potong Pasir SMC, where I am a candidate. 晚上好，大家好，我是林炳，我是人民联盟的秘书长。我也是波东巴西的候选人。Now, my friends, my colleagues before me have talked at length about what we propose to do if we enter Parliament. And I would urge you to read, and you can find it on my Facebook, our contract with Singapore, what we are proposing for this GE2025. Other parties may call their document a manifesto. We have called ours a contract with Singapore because it is our promise to you what we will deliver if we are elected into Parliament. And let's face it, PAR by itself is not going to form the next government. All right, we only have 13 candidates running, but we are very proud that at least we have played our part. It was not easy for us to field 13 candidates, but we managed to. We could have fielded more, but we acted in the best interest of all the opposition parties. And that is why, although we had initially wanted to contest in Place Ayu, Kebun Baru and Marymount, we pulled away and allowed the other parties to contest. Now, let me come to this campaign, and we are really in the waning hours of the campaign now. In about 2.5 hours, everything comes to a stop, and it will be cooling off day. But I cannot help but say that I have found this campaign extremely silly. Extremely silly from the point of view of how the PAP have framed their arguments. They have refused to talk about the most pressing issues. What are the most pressing issues? The cost of living, unaffordable public housing, your job insecurity, and this invasion by foreigners and immigrants. They refuse to talk about that. And what do they talk about? First argument, certain opposition members abandoned their area, like Chee Soon Juan abandoned Bukit Batok to come to Sembawang West. That's stupid, isn't it? That really is utter stupidity, right? Bukit Batok does not even exist as an SMC today. It has been subsumed into the new Jurong Bukit Batok GRC. Okay? So it was only logical for Dr. Chee to move. And then, what was the next argument? The WP turned negative. I didn't hear anything negative in the WP's campaign. In fact, the PAP are past masters of negative campaigning. You remember what happened with Tan Yang Hong, all right? You remember in the past what happened with Francis Seah, with J.B. Jeyaretnam? Were those not negative attacks? And yet, Lawrence Wong has the gall to say that the opposition are going negative. No. And then, you know, the craziest, most stupid argument is that, oh, if I lose a few ministers, we are going to be worse off, and my government is not going to be strong. And, you know, we may not be able to face the problems, the current global uncertainties and economic uncertainties. My friends, I hope you remember this when you walk into the voting booth on Saturday. Every election, every general election, is a referendum on the performance of the past government. If the past government performed poorly, there is absolutely no obligation. And in fact, it would be you not performing your duty if you carry on voting them into Parliament. All right? Let me be blunt. If a student fails his exams, does he have the right to go to the next grade? He stays back, right? You know? He does not get promoted. But Lawrence Wong is basically telling you, look here, don't vote out my ministers because otherwise I'm going to have a weakened government. Well, too bad. Because you brought it on yourself. You chose weak ministers who have no place in government, who have no place in Parliament. That's my answer to him. All right? And as my colleagues previously had said, all this is part of the fear-mongering package Lawrence Wong is now fast becoming a master of. He doesn't address the issues. He offers absolutely no solution to your cost of living problems, all right? He has no solution of how to bring down the cost of living. We, on the other hand, have proposed various measures, such as free education, free healthcare, free school meals, no GST on essential items, how we are going to bring down the cost of public housing. These are solutions. Not all of you may agree with the solutions we propose, but at least we have solutions. The PAP have zero solutions. Look at what they have done in the last 1 year. Have they even given you any idea of how they are going to solve the problems of cost of living, unaffordable public housing? Zero. All they are able to do is to give you so-called CDC vouchers and other subsidies. CDC voucher is too nice a term, you know. Really, at the end of the day, what CDC vouchers are food stamps, which they couch in nice language and they call it CDC voucher. In America or in the Western world, you are given food stamps when you are destitute, when you are poor, when you cannot even afford food. And you are given food stamps by the government so that you can go to special facilities, the soup kitchens and all that, and you can get food to feed yourself. And I think it is sad, my friends. It is very, very sad. You know, many of you are a lot younger than me. I'm a baby boomer. I grew up very much during the era of Lee Kuan Yew. I did a lot of my growing up during the 80s. And Singapore back then was a very different place. We were a developing nation, but we were proud because we were developing beautifully. The rest of ASEAN and much of Asia looked upon us with great respect. because even though we were a small nation with no natural resources, we were outpacing everyone else. But if you ask yourself today, and you look at what has happened in the past 20 years, which broadly coincides with the premiership of Lee Hsien Loong, and if you have traveled extensively or even lived overseas, you will know that Singapore has regressed. Singapore has regressed because for the past 20 years, we have had bad government, my friends. Do not let all these shiny towers, all these apparent modern infrastructure fool you. All right? You can find the same in other countries. If you go to Bangkok, they have superb infrastructure there as well. They have gleaming towers as well. Malls much bigger than ours. This is not the whole measure of what a good society should be. But where we have regressed, and very unfortunately is this, the Singaporean citizen has lost much of his and her privilege. You know, when you are the citizen of a country, you have inherent privileges because of your status. Your government, the first duty is to look after you, is to provide the opportunities for you to expand your potential, to fulfill your potential. But that is where, for the last 20 years, the Singapore citizen has suffered greatly. And I give you a few reasons. One of the greatest reason is that for the sake of pursuing neoliberal policies where profit trumps everything else and money is the god, not the human person, the PAP went to sign stupid treaties such as SECA. I am, as you know, a vehement opponent of SECA. No other party, except for People's Voice, which was the party I founded, and now PAR, want SECA to be abolished. SECA must be abolished because I have seen and I have heard from too many Singaporeans, very well qualified Singaporeans, well educated, lose their jobs, and some, not just one job, some have lost several jobs to foreigners, to foreign Indians. And ask yourself, has the ordinary Singaporean benefited at all from SECA? To me, the answer is no. DBS Bank or some other GICs who invested in India may have benefited, but have those benefits actually trickled down to you? Ask yourself. And yet at the same time, all right, we are having thousands of Singaporeans lose their jobs to foreign Indians. And I hope you can appreciate the gravity of the situation. Because if you are one of them, or you have suffered, what about your children in the future? Do you want to spend 18, 20 years of your life bringing up a child, giving that child the best education that your money can buy, only at the end of the day for your child to be displaced or replaced by a foreign Indian in his own homeland? And you know, my friends, I want to tell you a very heartbreaking story. I had dinner about 3 weeks ago with a very young Singaporean whom I greatly admire. He is only in his mid to late 20s today, but he's an entrepreneur. He started his own company distributing nutritional health products, and he's doing very well. He is a poly graduate. And I said, I'll just call him Mr. G, all right? I don't think, you know, I should reveal his name in case he doesn't want his name to be revealed. I said, why did you start? I said, at what age did you start your business? He said, 16. I was astounded. But Singapore must develop people like Mr. G because they are our future. They start the businesses, and the businesses then employ Singaporeans. Do not forget that 70% of our workforce are employed by SMEs. All right? The government, they always talk about the huge multinational corporations and all that, but at the end of the day, 70% of the Singaporean workforce is employed by SMEs. Which is why Pa and myself, we have always been very supportive of the SMEs. And if you had seen the round table last Sunday, which honestly had a disgraceful format. You know, Chi Hong Tat had 4 minutes to speak, whereas I and the other opposition members had only 1 minute each. Okay? We had 2 minutes for our closing arguments, he had 8. I don't see how any fair-minded person can come up with such a format. All right? But you know, this young gentleman, Mr. G, told me, when I asked him, why did you want to start your own business and, you know, go into business and all that? He said, look here, I started it really, you know, out of interest. But after I graduated from Polytechnic, I decided I had to go it full time because a friend of mine who was only 23 was laid off. 23 years old, and he was laid off. But my friends, that is the future that confronts Singaporeans if we are not careful. That is the future that confronts us if we keep on voting in the PAP and allow them to come up with treaties like SECA. Allow Tan See Leng to create jobs for foreigners. It's disgraceful. I am not anti-foreigner, but how can any minister of manpower create 91.3% of jobs for foreigners in the last 3 years? I've said this before many times. Should I call his ministry the Ministry of Manpower, or should it be renamed the Ministry of Foreign Manpower? Yeah. And you know something else? If in this age when AI is the rage, you can expect that in the coming years, many more jobs are going to be lost. All right? Bill Gates has been quoted as saying in the next 10 years, 50% of the present jobs will disappear, replaced by AI. Do you not think then that there is even greater urgency in a situation like this to give priority to Singaporeans for jobs, which is what PAR stands for, and we are the only party that insists on it. We don't want to hear about what fair consideration framework or, you know, other schemes, quotas here, quotas there. All right? The fact of the matter is that employers are finding ways to game the system. You ask them to put up an advertisement for Singaporeans for 2 weeks, they happily put up. And when Singaporeans apply, they go for the interview and all that, very often they are turned down. And then what happens? The employer goes to hire a foreigner. You tell me what is the use of schemes like that? But under PAR, things will be different. Under PAR, we will tell that employer, you are not to employ a foreigner unless you can show us with very conclusive proof that there is no Singaporean who is willing or is capable of doing the job. I give you an example. You know, it is disgraceful now that besides hiring Malaysians and Taiwanese to be auxiliary police officers, they have cast the net wider now. So now they are hiring Filipinos, they are hiring I think the Nepalese as well, they are hiring Chinese, they are hiring Indians on matters such as policing. There is no way Singaporeans should be policed by any foreigner. Alright? And that is why, my friends, I ask you in this election to ask yourselves, do you think that you have lost too much of your rights as a citizen? Do you expect your government to protect you better when it comes to jobs? Do you expect your government to protect you and your future generation better when it comes to the cost of public housing? Now, I'm not going to go into all the details on public housing and how we propose to bring down the cost. My colleagues before that have really said it. Okay? But, you know, Desmond Lee, again, has no solutions. Alright? All he's able to say is, oh, there was a backlog during COVID. And now, we have accelerated the building and the backlog should be cleared. Alright? But, my friends, when you do not stop PRs from buying, when you open the sluice gates of immigration wide, like they have, and thousands and hundreds of thousands of foreigners and immigrants come in, you think that your BTOs are sufficient to accommodate this vast number? And you know, when you raise objections and you resist the great influx of foreigners, like PAR does. And PAR, again, here is where we stand out. We are the only party courageous enough to tell the government in the face, your immigration policies are reckless. They are going to destroy Singapore down the line. And then you know what's the retort? Oh, you're racist, you're xenophobic, you're nativist. So there is no substantive counter-argument. They just use labels, all right, which the press, which is their mouthpiece, happily picks up and they label you that. My friends, if you are a true Singaporean and you're concerned about your future and your children's future, I urge you not to be concerned about labels. You look at things substantively and you understand the reality of it. It has been barely 3 years, I think not even 3 years, when HDB resale prices first crossed the $1 million mark, and in big numbers. And now, slightly less than 3 years later, they are fast approaching the $2 million. And you know, this is one of the big concerns of young Singaporean families when I talk to them. And if you go to Potong Pasir, all right, you go to Bidadari and Alkaf, those areas, where it's populated mostly by young families, with very young children, 2 to 3 years old, some even infants, all right, newborns. The fathers will tell me, one reason why I don't want to bring more children into this world is, you know, I look around me. Every resale apartment in Bidadari is over $1 million. And how is my child in future going to afford it? If it is fast approaching $2 million today, what will it be like when it comes to him? Now you may say, look here, there's no need for you to buy a resale HDB. You can go for a BTO. But don't forget, the BTO prices are pulled along by the resale prices. All right? They are pulled along. And it is no argument to say that BTOs are affordable when they are only affordable to many Singaporeans because of the huge subsidies that the government gives. And if I can quickly just have an aside here, you know, even in terms of subsidies, they have crazy policies. The maximum subsidy for a BTO is 120,000. All right? But you know what is the maximum subsidy for a resale flat? It's $230,000. Now, why should you be subsidizing someone who's more capable, more able to buy a more expensive resale flat than someone who has to go for a BTO? Why is there such a huge disparity, all right, in the subsidies given? So, my friends, this government or this past government that was in place for the last 5 years has been the most incompetent government in history. The most incompetent PAP government in history. And I don't have to come to you with a lot of arguments about their policies. You look at the fiascos, you look at the scandals, all right? Ministers living in black and white bungalows with palatial grounds, where many of you are cooped up in your HDB bird cage. Yeah? A minister selling his GCB for $88 million. About 11 times more than what he bought for 20 years ago. And the identity of the real buyer is not known to the public, thereby inviting endless speculation. You know, a minister whose ministry issues a circular and she cannot ensure that other government agencies understand properly the intent of that circular. And what happens? Your NRIC is disclosed on the government portal. And were you not told so many years ago that your NRIC is one of the most private of data and should not be disclosed to any other party? But here you have a government openly disclosing your NRIC. Yeah? So my friends, why should we vote to keep an incompetent government in place? And I want you to ask yourself this. Do you think that your lives are going to get better if you vote in the same people? The same people who made your lives miserable the last 5 years. All right? GST, at the height of inflation, they had the audacity, despite the howls of protest, to lump 2 rises in GSTs, thereby, to use Pritam Singh's words, turbocharging the inflation. Yeah, you and I suffer. Our bak chor mee goes from $3.50 to $4, $4.50, now $5. Yeah. Only the other day, in Paya Lebar Square at the Simpo Center, I bought a Coke, a can of Coke. Last week that Coke was $2, which is already expensive. You know what's the price today? It's $2.20, a rise of 10%. When is this rise going to end? And is it not all linked to the GST hikes? Okay? Now, my friends, I do not want to take too long. You know, I have gone on at some length, but I ask you once again to bear this in mind. When you go into that voting booth on Saturday, you have a duty to vote for a person or a team which you think can make your life better in the next 5 years. The PAP will come up with a lot of stories as to why it is dangerous to vote for the opposition. All those are nonsensical, fallacious arguments. The problem with the Singapore government, with the Singapore Parliament now, is that there are not enough opposition. You only have 10 elected opposition members and you have 2 NCMPs. Not enough firepower. Not enough to stop the steamrolling of the PAP through their supermajority. And also remember this, you need to vote for opposition MPs who are able to speak up for you, who have the courage to speak up for you. And on this, I am not going to hide my fire under the bushel. I may be blowing my own trumpet, but I seriously ask you to consider voting me as a member of parliament for Potong Pasir. I have been a lawyer for 35 years of my life. I have been with 2 of the largest law firms in Singapore, Drew and Napier and Raja and Tan. And in Raja and Tan, I was head of the shipping department. I had 35 lawyers under me. The shipping practice in Raja and Tan was the largest in Asia. I have been doing litigation work all my life, which means I go to court to fight cases. I know what I'm good at. I'm good at questioning. I'm good at cross-examination and getting answers. In 2020, I cross-examined Lee Hsien Loong twice in quick succession in 2 defamation cases he brought against Leong Zi Hien and Terry Su. I think I did very well. In the first one, I completely destroyed his expert witness. All right? Those 2 cases today remain the landmark cases in defamation law in Singapore. And what those 2 cases have done is to, first of all, limit the amount of damages which a plaintiff can claim. Now, you and I know from past experience how defamation was this feared weapon used by past PAP leaders. All right? Because we managed to limit damages, they are not so feared now. And in both cases, he recovered about $200,000 worth of damages, which is below the High Court jurisdictional limit. What does that mean? It means that if you do not cross the 250,000 mark, you should not be going to the High Court. You should be going to the District Court. We limited him. All right? And more beautifully, Leong Zi Hien and Terry Su had every single cent of their damages and their legal costs crowdfunded. The public willingly came out and supported them. It was a slap in the face for the plaintiff. Not only were they not bankrupted, they walked away free man. They walked away unharmed because of the great support of Singaporeans who had had enough of this nonsense and the use of defamation. Which is why it does not please me when I see all these stories of defamation suits flying around. You know, defamation suits should not be used in a cavalier manner. All right? In fact, if you read the history of defamation, you will see that it was a law that was invented during the reign of James I in England. And it was used by the rich and powerful to stifle criticisms about that. And so today, one of the great complaints about defamation law is that rich plaintiffs can use it to silence their critics. I hope I did my part for Singapore law by defending Leong Zi Hian and Terry Su in those two cases. But I want to say this. I am good at ferreting out the answers. And I think that is what we need in the Singapore Parliament. Because too often, PAP ministers are getting away with not providing real answers. Okay? And they have their supermajority to protect them. I will not let them go. I will keep my teeth in until I get the answers. And the other thing is this. I am a lawyer. The Singapore opposition badly needs some lawyers. There are quite a number of lawyers in the WP ranks, but they have not really practiced the law. You may have graduated in the law, but unless you have been exposed to the rough and tumble of court litigation and practice, you do not really know how rough it can get. And that is why Shanmugam and the other PAP legally trained MPs very often run rings around the opposition. You know, because you need to know about court procedure. You need to know really how the law works. All right? Now, I will be able to go toe-to-toe with Shanmugam, with Indrani Raja, with Edwin Tong. Yeah. I mean, the other members of parliament in the opposition ranks have their strengths. Don't get me wrong. There are economists in there, like James, you know, like Leong Man Wai. They are good with the economic stuff, but they do not know the legal stuff. And unfortunately, our parliament has shaped up in such a way that very often legal matters are of utmost importance. You look at POFMA, you look at FICA, you look at the maintenance of religious harmony bills. All these involve legal concepts. All right? I think I have gone on long enough, probably far too long. I am going to close now. And in closing, my friends, on behalf of PAR, I thank all of you for the tremendous support you have shown our party during these 9 days of campaign and even before that. Everything is in your hands now. There's not much else we can do. But also, in closing, permit me to say this to my Potong Pasir voters and residents. I think the race in Potong Pasir is going to be close. And we have a historic chance to defeat the PAP here. It is unfortunate that there is a three-corner fight. I very much hope that the opposition vote will not be split. I do respect Williamson Lee of the Singapore People's Party, but having said that, I think I am the only person who's capable of defeating the PAP candidate, Alex Yeo, who last ran with the Aljunied GRC team in 2020. So I hope on Saturday, the voters of Potong Pasir who intend to vote against the PAP and vote for the opposition will coalesce around me so that we have a real chance of defeating the PAP. I also request that as many of you sign up as my counting agent and polling agent. It is important, especially in close races. No, any race, not just a close race. It is important that every vote be properly counted. All right? Because every voter has waited for 5 years to exercise this right, which is fundamental to our democracy. My friends, on that note, I thank you, I wish you good night, and I will see all of you, my colleagues and I will see all of you on Saturday. Good night.